Hi Hermits, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dara and today we are going to do a bit of a read a chapter challenge. Now, I have to be honest with you guys. The reason I am in need of this video is because yesterday was a bit of a mental health day, and I know you get it, but for me a mental health day means buying a shit ton of books. So yesterday I sat on my couch with my dogs and my tea and went through my entire wish list on both Amazon and Goodreads and just bought most of those books, which means I'm going to be needing some shelf space because my shelves are already full of books. I can probably do a little bit of extra stacking, but honestly I need some space. So what I've done is I've gone through and picked 20 books off of my shelves that I never seem to want to read. So these are things that might have been on my shelves for a really long time, or that I always just seem to like gloss past when I'm picking what to read next. There are things that I've picked for different reasons. There are also a couple on this stack that I've picked because they have TV adaptations, and I'm slightly more interested in the TV adaptation than the book itself, which I know is a shameful thing to admit, but like, it's the truth. So I am going to get cozy, get comfy, and read the first chapter of each of these 20 books and come and update you at intervals. I'm not going to update you after every book because honestly I'll get out of the flow and it'll take forever to film this. But just to give you a really quick glimpse at what you can expect, I've got them in a very precarious pile right now. So this is our first stack. Ooh, this is our second stack. So I'm gonna go get reading. Okay, it has been a couple of days and I have read all of my first chapters, barring two, because actually two books that I pulled out originally, I was thinking about them and I realised that actually those are things that I want to read and I'm committed to reading, whether I like the first chapter or not. So I put those two back on my shelves and I'm sure I'll talk about them in a future video. But for now, let's look at the fairly hefty stack that I read the first chapter of, because I have some very surprising thoughts. There were things that I pulled out that I thought were going to be firm favourites, and there were things that I was convinced I was going to be letting go of, and I was wrong on most counts. So let's have a little look at what we have here. I will say I have all of the dogs in the room with me right now. One of them is chewing on a squeaky ball, so if you do hear any squeaking, that's what's going on. I'm not going to edit it out because I'm not the biggest fan of editing, so this is real life, folks. Enjoy. Now let's get started. So the first book is Nights at the Circus by Angela Carter. And this is one that I was convinced was a keeper because I love Angela Carter. Do I? Or do I want to love Angela Carter? Like, I love some of Angela Carter's books, but some of them, to be honest, have been a bit of a miss for me. And when I read the first chapter, like honestly, within a page, I was like, this is not the one, for a couple of reasons. First of all, why is this text so tiny? It's unnecessary. Like, I have impeccable eyesight. I do not have any issues with eyesight, but I don't understand why you want to make text so tiny and so cramped on a page. Hi Milo. So just like format wise, I was already thinking like maybe if I'm going to read this, I'm going to get a different edition just for reading pleasure. But then the more I read it, I was like, oh, I don't think this is the one. And it's because of one very stupid, very shallow quirk that I have. So I do not like it when authors like write out accents or dialects. Like, I like to use my imagination to conjure the voices. It really like takes me out of the moment when I'm sort of having to like almost say out loud in my head what the characters are saying, because it's like written in such a way. I felt the same with Wuthering Heights. Like, when I had to read that at university, after the first couple of pages with people speaking in this Yorkshire dialect, I was like, I can't, this is unreadable, and I am from Yorkshire. It just bothers me so much when I see that in books. I think it's so unnecessary. So for that reason, this is going to be one that I'm going to let go of, and I'm sure that it will find a reader that will thoroughly enjoy it, because Angela Carter's work is iconic. It really is. This one just feels like it's not going to be for me. Next, we have the Book of Polly. Now, this is one that I thought I was going to want to get rid of. So the Book of Polly tells like this very complex, wacky story about an unusual mother and daughter. So the mother was in her late 50s when she surprisingly found out she was pregnant with Polly. And this tells the story from Polly's perspective when she is, I believe, like 11 or 12. And when I bought the book, so I bought it online, I didn't realise that it was told from the perspective of a child. And that is one of those things that makes me immediately want to stop reading a book. Like, I am not interested in reading from the perspective of a child. I wasn't even interested in reading from the perspective of a child when I was a child. It's just never been for me. However, I read the first chapter and was immediately captivated by Polly, by her like relationship with her mother, like the whole thing. Very much yes. Very much yes. I think I'm really going to enjoy this. So this one is staying, and hopefully I will get to it very soon. Next, we have Three Women by Lisa Taddeo, and this is actually non-fiction. And can we just take a moment to appreciate the cover? I just think the cover of this book is so beautiful. And before I even started reading any of these, I was saying to myself in my head, like, I know I'm not gonna like that, but can I keep it just for the cover? And then I read the first chapter and loved it. Like, the writing style is so captivating. It's so easy to get into. It's very relatable. And I just think, all in all, I'm gonna have a really good time reading this. So surprises all round, this one is gonna stay. But this is very much like a feminist, I don't even know how to describe it. So it tells the story of these three individual women that our author has met and interviewed. And I suppose it's to showcase the different struggles and issues that impact women in society. So it sounds like it's going to be a bit grim. It sounds like it's going to be a bit dry, but actually the writing style is very compelling, and it's almost like reading fiction, which I enjoy. I enjoy that in my non-fiction. Then we have The Red House by Mark Haddon. This one's an interesting one because I really love the writing style. I think it's very captivating, and it's very different. It's I haven't noticed anybody else use the same style of bouncing between different character perspectives on a paragraph by paragraph. So it's not like each chapter is told from a different point of view. It's every few paragraphs it shifts to another member of the party. So this tells the story of two sides of an estranged family. So there is a woman, her husband, her two kids, and her estranged brother and his new wife and his stepdaughter, who are coming together for a week. They're staying in this cottage in the middle of the countryside and working through their copious issues. And it's just, the writing style is so captivating and so inviting, but I'm feeling very torn about it, because there's something about it that was making me feel so uneasy. Like, by the time I'd read the first page, there was just like, it's like my nervous system had alarm bells going off. I just felt like there was going to be something icky, like something that makes me feel icky and gross. And for that reason, I don't think I want to continue, but I do need to commend the writing style because it is very beautifully told. What I will say is that the chapters are long, and that is because it is told over the course of this week holiday, and each chapter is one of the days. So a lot happens, especially because we are bouncing between every single person in this house. So that is 7 characters. So you're getting 7 perspectives in every chapter for 7 days. And so it's very creatively crafted, but I just feel like it's not going to be for me. And I think there are things that have maybe not aged well. Like some of the characters saying things, like I feel like some of the things said, they just don't, not that they were ever particularly okay, but just like some of the views on women and some of the views, like some of the racial views, like it's not like it's a big topic, but there were a couple of words used in the first chapter that I just thought, was this entirely necessary? I don't think so. So very torn about this one. I think I am going to let it go because I feel like this could be a favourite for somebody who isn't me. So I'm going to pass this on. Next we have Umami by Laia Hufresa. And this is translated, I believe. I think it's translated from the Spanish. I might be wrong, but it is set in Mexico. And again, this is from the perspective of a child. So immediately, like a couple of pages in, I was like, not going to be for me, told by a child, no. But actually, I really love it. I really love the writing style. It is very like slow and melancholic and beautiful. And there's a real connection with like food and the community and the culture. And I'm struggling to find the word. It's just very, very beautifully written. And I can already tell it's going to be very, very bittersweet. It tells the story of a young girl who's, I believe it's her sister, passed away tragically. And their family are like all of the family members are obviously dealing with this tragedy in very different ways. And one of her ways is by deciding to plant this garden. And I just feel like it's going to be a beautiful read, if not necessarily the happy ever after that I so often look for in my books, because I am that basic. But I think it's going to be a really good time. I love the cover, love the writing style. I just think that I might have to eat my words when it comes to reading books from the perspectives of children, because there are two already that I'm like, yes please. Then we have The Last Runaway by Tracy Chevalier, and this one has been on my list and on my shelves for such a long time. Now, I am such a big fan of historical fiction. I really am. However, I'm gonna say goodbye to this book. I'm sad about it because look at this, like look at it. Beautiful. I love it. Like, so pretty. But it's not for me. Now, this tells the story of two sisters who leave their home in England to sail over to the New World. One of the sisters is engaged to be married, and the other sister is our main character. But she's like going along with her sister for the ride. And the first chapter sort of tells the story of the crossing. And she is terribly seasick the whole time, violently ill, not having a good time at all, definitely regretting it and realising that she really can never go home because the crossing was so bad. The main reason that I'm letting go of this book is, again, because the language, the dialect, I just think it just irks me. And one thing that I notice is, instead of saying you, it's always the. And I get it, it was the language of the time, but it just makes things flow less well for me. I just don't like it. So I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let this go because I have just decided that there are so many books in this world that I would love to have the opportunity to read. There are so many books that I know will be like standout favourites for me. So I do not have time to read things that are going to be less than that. Like, if I come across something that is just not the one, then I'm giving myself permission to just let it go. I only have time to read a finite number of books in my life. I'm going to pick ones that are it for me. Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Now, this one I thought was going to be like leaving this house. Partly because I have an interesting relationship with hyped things. For the most part, if something is very, very hyped, I'm just not interested. So I was very tempted to let this go for that reason, because it is such a global darling. Like, everybody has heard of this book. I recently watched the trailer for the adaptation and thought that looked amazing. I'm definitely going to be watching it. And sometimes when I want to watch an adaptation, I just won't bother with the book because I don't want to have to feel like, oh, the book's better, or oh, the adaptation's better. I just want to enjoy the one that I'm consuming. However, after reading the first chapter, I'm hooked, I'm interested. I got a very different vibe than I did from watching the trailer, so that's really interesting. But I'm going to keep it, and I think this will be a very, very quick read for me. Next, we have To Marry an English Lord by Gail McCall and Carol Wallace. Now, this one is non-fiction, and the whole time I was reading my chapter of this one, I was very conflicted because on the one hand, this era captivates me. Like I said, I love historical fiction, but I also just love history in general. I also love Downton Abbey, which this book helped to inspire. So it's like that kind of era that really just speaks to my spirit. The way that it is written drives me fucking crazy. It's laid out like a textbook. Let me give you an example of one of the things that really pisses me off. So we have like the main writing, okay? So it's there's this narrative talking about a particular topic, but then we'll get to a section where, so that is literally, it's not even just mid-sentence, it's mid-word, hyphenated, like because it is a broken up word. And then we turn over and it's interrupted by a profile of a person or a profile of an event before carrying on with like the word / sentence. That for me is so annoying. It's so annoying. It really does interrupt the flow of the reading experience. I don't know why people do it. It's so unnecessary. Having said that, I feel like I want to read it because I was so gripped with the topic at hand, just like hearing about all of these real life people who did these ridiculous things. I was having a really good time apart from that. And so I'm going to try and push on and not let the format ruin all of my enjoyment. But it's not my favourite to see. So non-fiction authors, if you are watching this, give the people what they want, and by the people, I mean me. Now we have another one that I was certain was going to be a goodbye. 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. So a couple of things to say on this. Number one, I've actually read the first chapter of this before and thought, oh my god, no, I don't want to read this. But then recently I watched the adaptation and I watched it all over the course of 2 days. I thought it was so gripping. I absolutely loved it. And because I loved it, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to let the book go because nothing is going to match that. Like, I just had such a good time watching it. But then I read the first chapter and I was like, it's first of all, the story is immediately different to the adaptation, which I think is really interesting. But then also I was just hooked. And I don't know if it's because I have that foundation of like the world and like visualizing the characters that I didn't have previously, but I want to spend more time in this world, so I'm going to keep it. Then we have The American Boy by Andrew Taylor. So this is actually on my 22 books to read in 2022 list. So obviously I thought that this was going to be a keeper. However, I didn't enjoy it. Now, what is interesting to note here is that the writing style is very much it's very classic. Like if you could read this and think it was a classic written in Victorian times, like the syntax, the vocabulary, the style of writing is very, very classic. So if you are looking to get into more classic or classic style novels, then this might be a good choice for you. So this tells the story of somebody, like a young man who is going to work in a boys' school, and then something happens there. So somebody dies and there's this mystery surrounding it, and one of the key players is a young Edgar Allan Poe. So obviously this is a fictionalized account. I didn't get the vibes from it. Usually I love classics and I love anything written in that style, but do you know what it is? I feel like, do I need another book about an entitled man having an existential crisis. That was the overall vibe that I got from this. And I decided, no, I don't. Like, that's not my preference. Like, if I don't have to read this, if I don't have to study it, which I don't, I'm not gonna keep hold of it, because I had to study so many books that had that kind of privileged but melancholic male protagonist, and I'm done with that phase of life. So I am going to let this go, which is a bummer because the cover is stunning, like absolutely beautiful, but it's not going to be for me. I do think that other people will enjoy it. I just am not in this reading mood right now, and I probably won't be again. So goodbye to the American boy. Next we have Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons, which is a teeny tiny little book. And this one is one that I actually thought I was going to be letting go of, just because it has been haunting my bookshelves for many, many years, and for some reason I never want to pick it up. But I read the first chapter and I was laughing out loud. It is so funny, it's so witty, it is so dry, and it is so relatable. Like, there's this one line, I should have bookmarked it, but it said something like, my idea of hell is being at a party in a cold room where everyone has to play hockey. And like, same Stella, same. Definitely going to be reading this. I might actually read it this month because I just had such a fun time reading that first chapter. So I think she actually might be one of those authors that I now have to binge her entire backlist, because like, the style of writing is just so witty, so dry. It's my kind of humour. I just think I'm going to have a really good time reading her books. Then we have Left Bank by Kate Murr. This is one of the books that I've owned for the longest time. Like, it's probably one of the oldest things that I've had sitting on my shelves. And it is about this like very glamorous couple who live in Paris. As a philosopher, French philosopher, and his American wife, who's a Hollywood actress. And very, very early on, like, this is not a spoiler, so in the first few pages they go to a theme park with their daughter, and the daughter goes missing. And I think that I've read this first chapter 3 or 4 times over the years, and there has to be a reason that I haven't progressed. And it's like, the writing style, perfectly fine, like, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's just something about this that makes me not want to carry on reading. Possibly because like, the husband, the philosopher, is such a knob. Like, I've just got no interest in reading any more about him. Can't bear the man. And then like, the main woman is just like, a lot of her thinking and a lot of her talking and like everything about her seems to be very enmeshed in like diet culture and how people perceive you, and that's just not the kind of, they're not the kind of people that I can get invested in. They're not the kind of people that I want to read about. So I am finally, after many years, going to let this go. Next we have According to Yes by Dawn French, and again, this is one that I thought I was going to be letting go of because it has been on my shelf for so long and I never want to pick it up. But immediately after reading the first chapter, and the first chapter is short, like all of the chapters seem to be very, very brief, like 3 or 4 pages each, which I think gives it an extra gold star because we love a short chapter. But it's funny, it's relatable, it's gripping. I just think I'm gonna have a good time. So this tells the story of a primary school teacher in her late 30s who has a bit of an existential crisis, and so jumps on a plane, flies to New York, and gets enmeshed with this very wealthy, traditional, conservative man and his family. And I just think it's going to be a really fun time, so keeping. And then we have The Secrets of Sunshine by Phaedra Patrick. Love the cover, first of all. That's obviously why I bought it. Read the first chapter, not that interested. It's not bad. Like, it's sort of it's a romance, I guess, about this single dad who, like, his wife passed away and he has shut himself off to love, and his day job is chopping the padlocks off the bridge. So you know how people will put, like lovers will go and put a padlock on a bridge to like symbolize their everlasting love. Like his job is going and chopping off all of the padlocks. So you know, he's a grumpy kind of guy. He's not a romantic, but then I believe he ends up meeting somebody when she's, I don't know if she's about to jump off the bridge or something, but he meets her, and like a relationship ensues. But there's just something about it that just didn't grip me, and I'm usually such a lover of all things romance, but it has to get me in the first couple of chapters, and I have to be invested in the characters, and I'm just not. So this one is going to go back into the world with blessings. Then we have Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. And again, this is one that I've had on my bookshelves for many, many years. And again, just have never been tempted to pick it up. So I think I expected to be saying goodbye to this, but after reading the first chapter, it's definitely going to be a keeper because girl knows how to leave a cliffhanger. That first chapter definitely made me want to read more, which I think is the purpose of a first chapter, isn't it? It's to whet the appetite, it's to like plant some seeds of intrigue, and this certainly did that. So this one tells the story of a woman who, like, she has like this, there's an element of magic here. So essentially she is born and dies as a baby, but then alternately she is born and lives. I don't know, it's very like whimsical and magical, and gives you like all of these possibilities of what if you had infinite chances to make your impact on the world. I'm still not sure it's going to be a firm favourite, but I'm captivated enough to keep it and to want to read it. Then we have Tell No One by Harlan Coben. Very short chapters, very gripping read. Like the tragic thing that sparks the whole story happens within the first couple of pages. So I'm keeping this, and I'm probably going to be reading it really soon because I didn't want to put this down. I wanted to keep reading. He knows what he's doing. Then we have Cocaine Nights by J.G. Ballard, and this is very much a modern classic. This tells the story of this man who is traveling to help his brother. Now his brother, I don't know if he runs or manages a resort in Marbella, and something happens. There is a fire, and I think 5 or 6 people die, and the brother is charged with murder because the brother confesses, but everybody knows he didn't do it. Like his brother knows, the police know, but like, why is he confessing? So the brother is traveling to Spain to unravel what happened. I didn't think that this was going to be for me. I thought it's been sitting there for so long, and I've clearly not been interested in reading it. But after perusing the first 2 pages, I'm actually really interested. I want to know what happened. The writing style, very captivating. I'm already invested in the characters, which is not always the case when we have a book written by a man about men, and like seemingly just men. So pleasantly surprised. And then last but not least, we have Cloth Girl by Marilyn Heward Mills. Now this is a historical fiction. It's set in the 40s in Africa. I feel like this one is going to be emotional. I think it's going to be really like sad, but also very heartwarming. I'm just getting that impression. Like nothing particularly sad or heartwarming has happened yet, but I've just got a feeling. So this, again, it's from the perspective of a young girl. Not usually my thing, but maybe I'm turning a corner. But she has been spotted by a lawyer. Now this wealthy lawyer, he lives on his own compound. He already has a wife, he already has children, but he decides that he likes the look of her. So I haven't like got to this part yet. Like we've just sort of been introduced to the characters, and he's seen her for the first time and sort of created an opportunity to see her for a second time. But this is essentially about this man who takes this young girl as a second wife, and then obviously his first wife has something to say on the matter, and it's really about the impact on each of, like, on her family, on his family, And then I believe there is also a parallel story from the perspective of a white woman who did not particularly want to be living in Africa, but I think she's been forced to move there by her family or by her husband, and so she is just living it up, like drinking, flirting, being reckless. And I'm assuming that the story of Matilda, the young girl, and this woman Audrey are going to intersect at some point, but I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there. But already I'm really interested, already I want to know more. Yeah, I'm feeling this one definitely. So all in all, this was quite a successful experiment. I've definitely become a lot more excited to read a few of these books that have been haunting my shelves for a while, and I've got a stack here that I'm going to be unhauling. So I'm going to stick this in my box to go to the charity shop and have a little bit of space on my shelves. Not a lot of space, but a little bit. Could do with some more, to be quite honest, but one book at a time, eh? Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it to the end, well done, I appreciate you. I would love to know if you've read any of the books that I've talked about today and what you thought of the first chapters. Like, did they grip you? Is that what made you want to read them? Or was it something else? Let me know. And if you have enjoyed this video, if you enjoy hearing me ramble on about books, then please do hit subscribe and come back for the next one.